Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We welcome all of our YouTube Live listeners and our listeners over Facebook Live. Welcome to all of you. Wishing all of you a very, very happy 124th Vyasa Puja of our very, very dear Srila Prabhupada. So we'll start our session today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Naruttamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajamaline Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangraye. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Aradhya Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavadhu Vargena Vakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Caitanya Mahaprabhur Matamidam Tatra Dharana Paraha Om Jnana-Virandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Radhanatha Swami Niti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swami Niti Namine. Namacharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayine Gaura Katha Dhamadaya Nagara Grama Tarine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachalam pangurlangayate girim yat kripa tamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhanam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So again, we'd like to welcome all of our YouTube Live listeners and our Facebook Live listeners to this session of Sri Bhagavatamrita. Today again, we are here with you to present to all of you a very, very beautiful session that we have put together for you. We'll first cover one chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, And then we will dive into the nectarian leelas of Srila Prabhupada in honor of Srila Prabhupada's 124th Vyasa Puja today. So today we will be speaking on the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We will be speaking from chapter 17, which is entitled Lord Krishna's Description of the Varnashram System. So here in this particular chapter, Krishna, he's describing to Uddhava about the Varnashram system in general. So previously we have seen that Sri Krishna has, he assumed the Hamsa avatar, the incarnation, and in that incarnation, in answering the questions of Lord Brahma, he described the duties of a brahmachari, the duties of the grihastha. And in this current chapter today that we will discuss, Sri Krishna further describes about these matters to Uddhava. So Uddhava asks Krishna that, my dear Lord, previously you described the principles of devotional service that are to be practiced by followers of the Varnashram system. So please, my dear Lord, explain to me how all human beings can achieve loving service unto you by the execution of their prescribed duties. So my dear Madhava, now, I know you had told me that, you spoke in your Hamsa avatar, you spoke to Lord Brahma. You told me about this. But so much time has passed, my dear Lord. So therefore, I'm again requesting you to speak in detail about these Varnas and Ashramas. So Krishna, he says that in Satya Yuga, there is only one social class, Krishna says, which is called as the Hamsa. Not the Hamsa avatar, but there's no social order like Varnas, there's no ashramas, there's no, brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, there's no, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Nothing of that existed in Satya Yuga, Krishna is saying. Everyone was called Hamsa, to which all the living beings, all the human beings belong to that, social class called as Hamsa. So in that age, in Satya Yuga, Krishna says that everyone, all human beings are unalloyed devotees of the Lord from birth, and thus they are learned scholars. And that is why this Satya Yuga is also called as Krita Yuga, or the age in which all religious duties are perfectly performed. So then Krishna says, but what happens in Treta Yuga? The four social orders were manifested in Treta Yuga by me in my universal form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Brahmanas, Krishna says that the Brahmanas appeared from the Lord's face, the Kshatriyas appeared from the Lord's arms, the Vaishyas from the Lord's thighs, and the Shudras from the legs of that mighty universal form. And each of the social division was also recognized by its particular duties and behavior. Like Krishna says, Chaturvarnam maya shrishtam guna karma vibhagasha. It's not janma karma vibhagasha. That Varnashram is not divided based on janma. It is by, guna and by karma. So by duties and the behavior. So the same thing Krishna is saying here in the Uddhav Gita also. So then text 14, Krishna goes on to explain that the married order or the grihastha order of life appeared from the loins of my universal form. And the celibate students, the brahmacharis, came from my heart. The forest-dwelling retired, the vanaprasthis, appeared from my chest. And the renounced order of life, sannyas, was situated within the head of my universal form. So in the universal form, both the Varnas and the Ashramas are manifesting from the universal form of the Lord, which manifested first in the Treta Yuga. Text 16, Krishna goes on to describe what are some of the qualities of Brahmanas. Krishna says peacefulness, self-control, austerity, cleanliness, satisfaction, tolerance, simple straightforwardness, devotion unto me, mercy, and truthfulness are the natural qualities of the Brahmanas, which is very, very similar to the qualities of Brahmanas as told by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Next, Krishna describes the qualities of Kshatriyas. Krishna says dynamic power, bodily strength, determination, heroism, tolerance, generosity, endeavor, steadiness, devotion to Brahmanas are natural qualities of Kshatriyas. Then the qualities of Vaishyas, that faith in Vedic civilization, dedication to charity, freedom from hypocrisy, service to the Brahmanas, and desire for accumulating more money are the natural qualities of Vaishyas. Then Krishna describes the natural qualities of Shudras. Krishna says that service without duplicity to the Brahmanas, cows, and the Devatas, and other worshipable personalities, and complete satisfaction with whatever income is obtained in such service are the natural qualities of Shudras. So we see one very striking factor, that the Brahmanas regarded as the highest in the society, and the other three Varnas, they are actually serving the Brahmanas. Even Kshatriyas are serving Brahmanas, Vaishyas are serving Brahmanas, Shudras is also serving the Brahmanas. Then Krishna describes in detail the duty and responsibility of each of the ashramas and each of the varnas. And Krishna describes that what happens with brahmacharis. That he says that after receiving the sacred thread initiation, the Brahman initiation, the brahmachari goes to live in the Gurukul of the spiritual master. And with a pacified mind, the brahmachari absorbs himself in study of the Vedas. The brahmachari must offer to the Guru whatever food and other things he obtains by begging. He accepts for his maintenance whatever remnants of the Lord he is granted. He should render menial service to the spiritual master by massaging his lotus feet and worshipping him, and should avoid all sense gratification, and should maintain a strict vow of celibacy. With his mind, body, and words, the brahmachari should worship the Supreme Lord and his spiritual master. So we see this brahmacharya system, which was the Gurukul system. It was there even during Lord Ramachandra's time in Treta Yuga. That even Lord Ramachandra, even though he was a prince, he was a crown prince of Ayodhya. But still, this process of when the princes also come, they also will undergo the same kind of austerities that another regular citizen will undergo. That teaches the Kshatriyas or everyone, the purpose of the Gurukul is to train people in the acts of humility, to develop certain good qualities. So when when the brahmacharis would go out begging, when they would go out begging for food on behalf of their guru, it would teach them humility, because not every time they would get rewarded with food. They would get rejections also. So this, trains them to become free from their false ego, which is very important for a ruler, for a king. So that's why the system of Gurukul is there. Then Krishna further explains that after studying all the different aspects of the Vedas, a brahmachari who has material desires may take permission from his guru, and then he can enter into Grihastha ashram. So there are two kinds of brahmacharis. One is a Naishtiki brahmachari who decides not to get married at all. That straight here Krishna explains that if he does not have any material desire, then such a brahmachari can straight go from brahmacharya to sannyas. That is a Naishtiki brahmachari. But those brahmacharis who have the desire to enter into Grihastha ashram, they are called as Upakurvana brahmacharis. So Upakurvana brahmacharis are those who, after their brahmacharya training, taking permission from their guru, they get married, they enter into family life, into a Grihastha ashram. So here Krishna says that the proper order of succession should be followed in changing from one spiritual order to the next. That proper, with permission, with due permission, with proper sanction and the blessings of the guru, one must go from one ashram to the other. Then Krishna says that one who wishes to enter Grihastha ashram should accept a wife who is of the same class, who is not objectionable, and who is younger in age than himself. This is a verdict directly given by Krishna, that the girl should be younger than the husband. The wife should be younger than the husband. There are many Shastric references that even Srila Prabhupada has given in this context, reasons why the wife needs to be younger than the husband. Because the wife is subservient to the husband. That unless, if the wife also is of the same age or elder, then, there can be a lot of clashes in the family life. So therefore, this is a reason that Krishna is giving, that why the wife should be younger in age than the husband. The householder should study the Vedas every day and maintain his dependence with money honestly earned by his own occupation. And as far as possible, he should execute worship of the Lord by ritualistic sacrifices. Remaining unattached to material life and fixed in devotion to the Supreme Lord, the householder may finally take to the order of Vanaprastha, so that he can involve himself completely in the Lord's service along with his wife. And if, so Krishna says, if such a grihastha has a grown-up son, an eligible son, then he may directly take to the renounced order of life, which is sannyas. So this is the condition that Krishna gives, that if the wife is there and if they have a dependable son, a grown-up dependable son, then the husband can put the wife under the protection of the son and then leave home to take sannyas. Otherwise, Krishna says, grihastha then otherwise should stay in the order of vanaprastha as griha sannyasis. Srila Prabhupada, in this context, he always says that the Krishna consciousness movement is training devotees to stay in their ashram, whichever ashram they are. And in Kali Yuga, mostly everyone is grihastha, married. So staying in the ashram, but keeping their home as center for Krishna's activities. That is the training that Srila Prabhupada has given to, those who are in this Krishna consciousness movement. So then Krishna says in text 34 and 35, Krishna says that, my dear Uddhava, for all varnas and all ashramas, general principles are, cleanliness, washing the hands, bathing, performing religious services at sunrise, noon, and sunset, worshipping me, visiting holy places, chanting japa, and remembering my existence within all living entities as the Paramatma. These principles should be followed by all members of society through regulation of the mind, body, and words. And then Krishna says that a very important point, Krishna says in text 44 of this chapter, that how dear the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are to Krishna and how important it is to serve the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas is explained in text 44 by Sri Krishna. Krishna says in text 44 that just as a ship rescues those who have fallen into the ocean, similarly, I, the Supreme Lord, very quickly rescue from all calamities those persons who uplift Brahmanas and Vaishnavas suffering in a poverty-stricken condition. So in this context, I remember Srila Prabhupada making a comment. He says that when devotees are naturally very charitable. So when devotees engage in charity, especially we see right now, there's so much pandemic, there's so much need for, people worldwide, not just devotees, but especially devotees also. So if we can extend ourselves in some way or the other to help others to the best of our capacity, if we can do some charity for, like charity as, described by Krishna in the transcendental mode, not in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, but charity for to an eligible person. Eligible persons are devotees. That we know that our Lakshmi is getting used for good cause. So to feed the Vaishnavas who are really hungry, His Holiness Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj, he is doing the tribal care service. So much Lakshmi is needed for that service. Maharaj is, struggling so much for collecting funds to feed these tribal devotees. devotees in Mayapur, devotees in Vrindavan, especially in this pandemic time. You know, so many temples around the world, many temples, most temples, you know, are suffering because visitors are not coming. So if we can help to the best of our capacity, how much ever we can, if we can help such temples, such devotees, then Krishna says, just as a ship rescues those who have fallen into the ocean, I very quickly will rescue from all calamities those persons who are serving my devotees and the Brahmanas, who are suffering in a poverty stricken condition, who are in need of that charity. If we help them, then Krishna immediately rescues, quickly rescues, Krishna says here in text 44. Very important verse. So text 58, which is the concluding verse of this chapter, Krishna says that thus, you know, Krishna goes on to explain after text 44 that how a householder, a grihastha, should not get overly attached to family members, to money, to, you know, gross family responsibilities, and forget their eternal relationship with Krishna. We should not forget that. Then finally, Krishna, after saying all of this, Krishna says, in conclusion, he says that thus, because of the foolish mentality of a grihastha, a householder whose heart is overwhelmed by family attachment is never satisfied. Constantly meditating on his relatives, he dies and enters into the darkness of ignorance. So, with this, we conclude today's Bhagavatam session. And this will be our starting point for glorification of Srila Prabhupada, that from this, you know, darkness of, you know, ignorance, Srila Prabhupada has come to take us out from this darkness of ignorance. Prabhupada has come as our savior. If Srila Prabhupada was not here, then we would not be here today discussing about these glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the, you know, credit going to Srila Prabhupada, our heartfelt gratitude to Srila Prabhupada for, you know, at least making us realize that we are, you know, in this darkest region of ignorance, and we are trying our best by following the instructions of Guru and Srila Prabhupada to come out of this darkness of ignorance, so that we can, you know, continue the sadhana process and engage ourselves in sadhana bhakti. So this is how we understand, and we are now going to try and glorify Srila Prabhupada in this connection. So we have Prabhu, who will start off with the glorification of Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So there is a couple of verses from Sri Chaitanya Mangal in the Sutra Khanda by Lochan Das Thakur. Beautiful verses. Ebe nam sankirtan tikshna khadai laya antara surajivera phelibe katiya. Taking the sharp sword of the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, Nam Sankirtan, I will root out and destroy the demoniac mentality in the hearts of all conditioned souls. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking this. And then he speaks a wonderful verse predicting the appearance of Srila Prabhupada. Jodi papi chhari dharma dure deshe jai, mora senapati bhakta jaibe tathai. If some sinful people escape giving up these religious principles, go to far off places, countries, then my Senapati Bhakta, my commander in chief, will come at that time to give them Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And this is true for Srila Prabhupada. Slowly everyone was looking at the West, looking towards the West for guidance and inspiration. Even Indians, we were thinking that the Western is more advanced, and whatever the West does, India should imitate, and our old traditions and culture is not of much value. So, in that sense, some left the shores of India and went to the West, but some actually were looking at, at the West. In their consciousness, they had left India and went to the West. And at one point, the entire world was Bharatvarsha. So, SenapatiBhakta, Srila Prabhupada, will come and give them Krishna consciousness.
So, Srila Prabhupada, we will be discussing how Srila Prabhupada, gave us this unlimited mercy coming from Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada, when he was on the Jaladuta, when the Jaladuta was about to, dock on the shores of Boston Harbor, from the ship of Jaladuta, Srila Prabhupada wrote a beautiful poem called as Markine Bhagavad Dharma, that, begging to Sri Krishna that the instructions that Srila Prabhupada was given by his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, now it is, told by, he is now come to fulfill that instructions of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So, in a mood of utter humility, Srila Prabhupada has written this beautiful bhajan called as Markine Bhagavad Dharma, Bengali poem. And we thought that a very beautiful way of starting this session in glorification of the SenapatiBhakta is try to understand the mood of Srila Prabhupada, the mood of humility of Srila Prabhupada. So in that sense, I would just like to sing the last 3 verses of this Markine Bhagavad Dharma. So Srila Prabhupada writes, Tabo kripa hole mor kotha shuddho hobe শুনিয়া সবার শোকা দুঃখ যে ঘুচিবে আনিয়াছ যদি প্রভু আমারে নাচাতে নাচাও নাচাও প্রভু নাচাও সেই মতে কাষ্ঠের পুতলি যথা নাচাও সেই মতে ভক্তি নাই বেদনাই নামে খুব দারো ভক্তি বেদান্ত নাম এবে সার্থক করো।
Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I'm sure when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel and gladdened, and thus become liberated from all the unhappy conditions of life.
So Srila Prabhupada is telling this to Krishna. And then in the second verse that we read, he's saying that, oh my dear Lord, I am just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, make me dance. Oh Lord, make me dance as you like.
I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I have been designated as Bhakti Vedanta, and now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhakti Vedanta. Srila Prabhupada writes this in the Jaladuta as he is approaching the bleak skyline of the Boston Harbor.
So with this, we will now start glorifying Srila Prabhupada.
So here, Vasudev Ghosh had written a poem in glorification of Lord Chaitanya. Writing a poem, what if Lord Chaitanya did not come? Jodi gaur na hoito, tobe ki hoito, kemone dodhorita de. রাধার মহিমা প্রেম রস সীমা জগতে জানাত কে. Which means if Lord Chaitanya was not here, then what would have happened? Who would have spread the glory of Shri Radha, the Prem Ras of Radha? Who would have told the entire world? In the same mood of Vasudev Ghosh, His Holiness Srila Jayapataka Swami Maharaj wrote a poem about Srila Prabhupada. Jodi Prabhupada na hoito. So we will sing this wonderful prayer, one verse at a time. We'll sing the verse of Jodi Prabhupada na hoito. Then we'll read the translations, and then we will discuss some pastimes of Srila Prabhupada relevant to that particular verse. Then we go to the next verse, and so forth. So please join us in this wonderful journey of glorifying Srila Prabhupada. And while we are going in this journey, everywhere we look, we see different pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, with different qualities of Srila Prabhupada. So let's go along in this journey together.
Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai. যদি প্রভুপাদ না হইতো তবে কি হইতো, এ জীবন বহিত কিসে, নিতাই গৌরের অপার করুণা, কে দিত সকল দেশে। যদি প্রভুপাদ না হইতো তবে কি হইতো, এ জীবন বহিত কিসে।
If Srila Prabhupada had not come, what would have happened? How could we have passed our lives? Who else would have distributed the unlimited mercy of Lord Nityananda and Lord Gauranga all over the world? Srila Prabhupada, he distributed this mercy of Gaur Nitai all over the world. How? He distributed the mercy because he wanted just to be a humble instrument in the hands of the previous acharyas. In fact, one time in 1975 or so, one Babaji, one priest from the Advaita Bhavan temple in Shantipur, he came to ISKCON with a copy of Back to Godhead magazine, which had an article about Srila Prabhupada on that. And he said, he came to the devotees and he asked, who is this person? And so devotees said, well, this is Srila Prabhupada. This is the founder Acharya of ISKCON. Why do you ask? And so this particular priest of the deities of Advaita Acharya, of the home, caretaker of the home of Sri Advaita Acharya, he said, in 1965, I remember,
1970.
that there used to be a man. He used to come in 1965, and he would for weeks he came, and he would come and just cry and cry and cry and ask for prayers and blessings. Then one day I asked him, what do you come here for? Why do you cry? And then Srila, he said that Srila, and then this particular priest, he said, why do you cry? And Srila Prabhupada said, well, I have been given a mission by my spiritual master. He wants me to go to the West and preach this Bhagavad Dharma. But I don't have any qualification. And so I'm coming to pray to Advaita Acharya to please come with me. Give his mercy so I can go there. And at that time, this priest said, I thought, yeah, this person is special. But then now, a Western devotee came and gave me this book, Back to Godhead, and I immediately understood this is the same man who used to come to the beautiful place of Advaita Acharya, home of Advaita Acharya, surrounded by mango trees. And then he said Srila Prabhupada used to come every day. Because of this longing in the heart of Srila Prabhupada, the compassion he had for everyone, he wanted to be an instrument to save this world and take the mercy of Nitai Gauranga. And therefore he prayed to Advaita Acharya, who is the reason, one of the reasons why Lord Gauranga came. Tava kripa pai, daya koro, Sitapati, Advaita Gosai, Tava kripa bole pai, Chaitanya Nitai. By your mercy, Chaitanya Nitai have come. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada went to Advaita Acharya. By your mercy, Chaitanya Nitai has come. You please give me the mercy to be able to spread the mercy of Lord Nityananda Gauranga all over the world. Nitai Gaurera Apara Koruna Kedito Shakala Deshe. Nitai Gaura Karuna. So we go to the next verse. Paschatera
jato papi durachari shunnavadi mayavadi tadera udhara karibare mano heno kono dayanidhi যদি প্রভুপাদ না হইতো তবে কি হইতো এ জীবন বহিত কিসে? Which other compassionate person would have endeavored to deliver the miscreants, sinful, impersonalistic, and voidistic people in the West, other than Srila Prabhupada? So Srila Prabhupada, he was very happily settled in Sri Vrindavan Dham. He was living at Sri Radha Damodar temple. Srila Prabhupada, he was living in Radha Damodar temple. You know, most people at that age, when they go and live in Sri Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan, they go to leave their bodies in Vrindavan. It's a sense of retirement. But Srila Prabhupada, he was going there to prepare himself. For Srila Prabhupada, these are the days of preparation. Preparation for what? To embark upon the instructions given to him by Sri Srila Prabhupada, by his spiritual master. So Srila Prabhupada, you know, every single day, Srila Prabhupada would pray to Sri Sri Radha Damodar that please allow me to fulfill this instruction of my spiritual master. And a Babaji, a priest of the Radha Damodar temple, his name is Hridayananda Das Babaji Maharaj. And during that time, when Srila Prabhupada was in Radha Damodar temple in the 60s, early 60s, at that time, this Babaji was very young. He was a young boy. And their home was the one right attached to the Radha Damodar temple. They were right next to the Radha Damodar temple. So from the rooftop of their temple, they could see the entire courtyard of Radha Damodar temple. So every night, this young boy, Hridayananda Babaji, he would hear wails and cries coming from the Radha Damodar temple. So one night, he came out on the rooftop of his own house and he looked down upon the courtyard of Radha Damodar temple. And he saw a vision that etched in his heart for all times. What did he see? He saw our very own dear Srila Prabhupada was taking a broom and he was sweeping in front of the samadhi of Srila Rupa Goswami Pad. Rupa Goswami's samadhi is there at Radha Damodar temple. So Srila Prabhupada at midnight, when nobody is around, at that time Srila Prabhupada would come and sweep in front of Rupa Goswami's samadhi, and Prabhupada would cry out to Rupa Goswami. He would literally wail and he would cry. Just like Srila Advaita Acharya, he would do hunkar. Hunkaro Garjanadi. He would, and it is the cries of Advaita Acharya that penetrated through this material coverings and reached the ears of Radha and Krishna. So similarly, in the same way, the cries of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada would cry so much that he would beg at the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami. He would say, "Hey Rupa, please, I have no material strength also. But please, allow me to fulfill the instructions given to me by my spiritual master." This way, Srila Prabhupada would cry and beg at the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami. And we see how Srila Rupa Goswami Pad reciprocated with that hunkar of Srila Prabhupada in the manifestation, that it's because of those loving cries of Srila Prabhupada that we are all sitting here today. If not, we would be washed away, probably sitting in any corner of hell by now. We don't even know where we would be if it was not for Srila Prabhupada. So with this, we come to the third verse of this beautiful bhajan. Tadero nikate kunjano ashi bilaito horina Shobha jiva rupe gurite tadera ki hoyto aguyan jodi Prabhupada na hoyto tobe ki hoyto e jiban bodhito kishe.
How? Who else would have come to distribute Harinam to them? Who else would have come forward to transform them into civilized beings?
So, in this regard, Srila Prabhupada, he was asked so many times that, Swamiji, you have come here. What is your mission of coming here to the Western world? Srila Prabhupada would say, with a smile on his face, Prabhupada would say that these are all hippies. I have come to make them happies. So this is what Srila Prabhupada would say, that chant Hare Krishna and be happy. And Prabhupada would transform the hippies into happies and give them a way that they could stay high forever. That is what Srila Prabhupada's mission is. And Srila Prabhupada, although he created this huge mission, this huge movement, Srila Prabhupada is the Samsthaka, Pratishtata Acharya. He is the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. But still, Srila Prabhupada would take time for individual devotees, to care for them, to give them their love, his love to them. So one time, Srila Prabhupada, one of his Prabhupada's disciples, gives a very beautiful exchange. Srila Prabhupada had, this disciple had a toothache. And Srila Prabhupada, he came in one day holding his, when we have a toothache, we come in like this. So he came in and Prabhupada said, "What's happened? Do you have a toothache?" So then this devotee said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada, I have a little toothache." So Prabhupada gave, that because Srila Prabhupada had a chemist background, so Srila Prabhupada gave him a nice formula by which, he said, "Okay, take this particular ointment, just make it little hot and apply it on your teeth. You will feel better." So that devotee, felt so nice that although Srila Prabhupada is such a powerful acharya, but Srila Prabhupada still had time for individual devotees. Srila Prabhupada, he really transformed. He even showed the young hippies how to wear dhoti, how to wear tilak. He even showed the women how to, wear. So how did he teach the women? He would take his own dhoti and Prabhupada would, show them how to make pleats, how to put it here on himself, and then that's how they would learn. So Srila Prabhupada taught everything to the devotees. Right from scratch, Srila Prabhupada taught everything to the devotees.
So one time, it is said that Srila Prabhupada was in Bombay, in Juhu, Mumbai. In the Juhu temple, it was being built, and he was sitting, and he had a meeting. Some of the Marwari businessmen, they wanted to meet Srila Prabhupada. So they came to Srila Prabhupada, and they were very, they were in dhoti kurta, but they were businessmen and traditional Marwaris, and they came and they sat next to Prabhupada and asked Prabhupada how he's doing, what are you doing, and they asked about the movement, and Srila Prabhupada was telling ki this movement is growing so much, and now in the West, so many places it's there. In India, it's starting now to gain some traction and momentum. So one of the Marwari businessmen asked, "Prabhupada, वो सब तो ठीक है, लेकिन इतना पैसा कैसे बनाया?" Which means all this is all right, you're expanding, but how did you make so much money? Because the businessmen, that's what their goal is, and everyone was surprised. Srila Prabhupada, he is like in his 70s, and he is growing his business everywhere. Not only that, there's so much money being transactioned because of and big temples are being made. How is that possible? And he does not give any salary to his employees. In one sense, all the devotees who were joining, they were working, they were just serving, that's all, without any compensation. And so Srila Prabhupada said to them in Hindi, "हम गया उधर टॉम्किन स्क्वायर पार्क, वहां पेड़ के नीचे बैठ के हम करताल बजाया, हरिनाम किया, और फिर उसके बाद ये सब आ गया." And these people were just not able to understand how by chanting all this spiritual and material manifestations can take place of big temples, so much money and all of that. But then Srila Prabhupada said, "हम बोई लिखा था और अभी सब लोग बोई वितरण करता है." मतलब कि he was saying that I wrote books and all these devotees are distributing books and distributing the spiritual knowledge. And as a result, money comes, and all these temples are being built and we are being sustained. Krishna is providing everything. If we just serve Krishna, Krishna will provide everything. This is the proof. So that's what this verse is saying. Who else would have come to distribute Harinam? Who else would have come forward to transform these people into civilized human beings and make a organization which will sustain itself and spread the glory of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So we go to the next verse. Deshe deshe hari vigraha seva arati ratri dine ratha jatra adi
Prabhupada na hoito, tobe ki hoito, e jivan bojito kishe.
Who else would have taught them how to worship the deity form of Lord Hari day and night with Arti Kirtan, and how to conduct the Rath Yatra and other grand festivals? About this, how Prabhupada has taught us how to perform grand festivals. Srila Prabhupada, he installed Sri Sri Gaur Nitai in Melbourne City, taught deity worship. And in their installation, Srila Prabhupada said, very famous, the Rath Yatra speech, the installation speech was very small. You're very fortunate that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu have come to your country. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to teach you how we can become free from all anxieties. Everyone is full of anxiety, but everyone can become free from all anxiety if they simply follow the path chalked down by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As a child, Srila Prabhupada would play. He would play by making little Rath Yatra festival in his own little neighborhood in Kolkata. And he would invite the neighborhood families and children and have Rath Yatra all around the block. And years later, Srila Prabhupada continued celebrating Rath Yatra, but in major cities around the world. Srila Prabhupada would say that one astrologer looked at his face and analyzed his palm and hand, and he said, this person will either become a big businessman or he'll become a big proponent of religion around the world. And Prabhupada would say, my mother was hoping that I'll become a big businessman, and my father was hoping that I'll become the proponent of religion. So in this sense, my father's desire is fulfilled. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada took this Rath Yatra all over the world. One Rath Yatra in San Francisco. San Francisco had the first Rath Yatra. Srila Prabhupada named this city as New Jagannath Puri. And Srila Prabhupada gave a power-packed message, just less than 2 minutes. He was sitting on the top of the Rath Yatra chariot, and he addressed a crowd of tens of thousands of people. And Prabhupada said, people follow, they imitate your country. I travel all over the world, and wherever I go, I see tall skyscraper buildings imitating your country. So if you all become Krishna conscious and chant and dance in emotional love of God, the whole world will follow you. There'll be no more trouble. This will become Vaikuntha. Thank you very much. Very, very famous words of Srila Prabhupada. This was his entire Rath Yatra address. Then Srila Prabhupada taught us how to observe Vyasa Puja, how to install deities, how to perform puja. And then one time, I think it was in Japan or someplace, Srila Prabhupada told his devotees that today is Vyasa Puja of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and we should prepare Pushpanna. And so when he left, so by noon, get the Pushpanna ready. So devotees, they were scratching their head, Pushpanna. And then one devotee looked, said, Pushpa, Sanskrit, Pushpa means flower. Oh, Prabhupada wants flower. They went and they got flower from all the places, and they got those flower ready. And then Prabhupada came, like half an hour before, and he said, is the Pushpanna ready? Yes, Srila Prabhupada, here is the Pushpa. Prabhupada said, he just looked at them. He said, you don't know anything. I asked for Pushpanna. Pushpanna is rice, is a kind of rice. Where is the Pushpanna rice? He said, Prabhupada, we didn't understand, I'm sorry. Srila Prabhupada said, let's go. And he went inside the kitchen. Within 30 minutes, he prepared a grand feast for his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, with Pushpanna, with Kachori, with so many different things. And in this way, he personally taught how to honor the previous acharyas, how to offer the prayers, how to perform Vyasa Puja. There's a wonderful story. He also actually helped us in deity worship, puja, yachanas, archanas, Rath Yatra. We talked about Rath Yatra, Vyasa Puja, a small pastime about deity worship, Shri Shri Radha Landanishwara. There's a wonderful story how Shri Shri Radha Landanishwara in London, they manifested. They were installed in the Bury Place temple. When, you know, when Yamuna Mataji, she visited London Hindu Center in 1968, this was the first time that any of them, of the devotees who had gone there to London, had seen a 3-foot tall white marble Radha Krishna deities. 3 foot. So the whole Hindu temple center room, it had several altars of different devatas, and surrounded by the room, on all the 3 sides. Still, Radha Krishna deities, when Yamuna Mataji saw, she felt we should have like this in our London temple. So in December, a call came from Mr. Goyal, who actually had procured 3-foot marble Radha Krishna deities from India. And they had become slightly damaged in the transit, while coming from India to London. So Mr. Goyal called the devotees and said, can Srila Prabhupada come to bless them? Would he come to see them? So they asked Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, yeah, I'll come. And then a mysterious pastime took place. Prabhupada went to Mr. Goyal's house with 3 devotees, Shamsundar Prabhu, Mukunda Prabhu, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj. At that time, he was Prabhu.
All 3 were Prabhus.
All 3 were Prabhus. And they went to Mr. Goyal's house, and they arrived. They had some cordial talks. And at some point, it was understood now, the niceties are over, and the deities would be offered to ISKCON temple. But Srila Prabhupada didn't want to take any chances. After some time, few more moments passed, and Srila Prabhupada looked at the deities, the 3-foot marble deities of Radha Krishna, and said, yes, we'll take them. Mr. Goyal was shocked. He says, no, we will bring them to you later, because he wanted to, do some business transaction or something like that. Prabhupada said, no, we should not waste any time. For auspicious things, Shubhasya Shighram, we will take them now. And then he asked, Shamsundar, lift Krishna, Mukunda Prabhu, you lift Radharani. And Srila Prabhupada then said, you take each one and we'll go. Thank you so much, Mr. Goyal. And they left with the deities. And Mr. Goyal was stunned. What about? Anyway, and as soon as they left, Srila Prabhupada said, drive. And Shamsundar Prabhu drove on a few more blocks. And then Srila Prabhupada said, stop. And then he turned in his seat and he began offering prayers to the deities. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. He looked back. He looked at Krishna, who was white with a slight bluish cast and like a smile on his gorgeous face. Then he looked at exquisite white Srimati Radharani. Srila Prabhupada said very gravely to the devotees, Krishna is so kind that he has come to us like this. So even these different deities that Srila Prabhupada has installed have wonderful, wonderful pastimes. Like in Dallas, Sri Sri Radha Kalachandji deity, installed by Srila Prabhupada. It's a 5,000-year-old deity. Kalachandji. And it comes back, it comes in generations. So there are so many wonderful pastimes of Srila Prabhupada with the deities that they installed. We go to the next one.
Gita Bhagavata Chaitanya
সুন্দর সরল করিয়া কে বুঝাইত যদি প্রভুপাদ না হইত তবে কি হইত এ জীবন বলিত কিসে।
The Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita contain the essence of the nectarian mellows of love of Godhead. Who else would have explained these scriptures so clearly and beautifully? So Srila Prabhupada gave almost 80% of his entire time in writing books, translating from Bengali and Sanskrit texts, and giving his enlightening and such revealing Bhaktivedanta purports. So one time it is said that a reporter came to Srila Prabhupada and asked Srila Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, how do you get the inspiration to write so many books? And Srila Prabhupada said, very casually, Srila Prabhupada said, that Krishna dictates and I write. So the reporter was really taken aback. So then the disciples who were present there, they started to explain that, Krishna, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is like the Paramatma in everyone's heart. So the Paramatma directs Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada writes. So, and Prabhupada, Krishna gives the intelligence, and that's how Srila Prabhupada writes. So Prabhupada looked at the disciple giving the explanation, looked at him quite angrily, and Srila Prabhupada retorted back to the reporter and said, no, Krishna dictates and I write. So this is how Srila Prabhupada explains that, even in his own classes, Srila Prabhupada would make the devotees read his own purport. Srila Prabhupada every day in the afternoon would have his disciples read to him from the Krishna book. And Srila Prabhupada, many, many occasions, Srila Prabhupada has said that I have not written these. It is Krishna who has written these. So this is, if Srila Prabhupada was not there, how would we get such amazing insights into these revealed scriptures? Sometimes it appears so conflicting. But Srila Prabhupada has given us such easy and clear, explanations of how to apply and not only just understand these revealed scriptures, but most importantly, how to apply them in our own lives. This is the beauty of the books that Srila Prabhupada has given us. He has given us the way that just by following what Srila Prabhupada has written, we can, achieve the grand success of our lives, achieve the goal of our life, which is Krishna Prema. So we continue on with text 6 of this beautiful bhajan. Koto koshto shohi prito mone rohi kebadito horina kedito modero Puri Vrindavana Mayapuro Matodham Jodi Prabhupada na hoito Tobe ki hoito E jivan boshito kishe.
Who else would have tolerated all difficulties and distributed Harinam with a pleasant heart? Who would have given us the dhams such as Mayapur, Vrindavan, and Jagannath Puri? So this is true. Srila Prabhupada established book distribution and Harinam Sankirtan all over the world. Wherever ISKCON is, there is Harinam and book distribution goes on. Prabhupada in Mayapur, Sri Mayapur Dham, when he was there, he just had a small bhajan kutir which is still preserved. And there is 24-hour kirtan going on in Sri Mayapur Dham. It's a very humble abode, very simple. And that was the only thing in Mayapur at that time. So Srila Prabhupada, from that bhajan kutir, he envisioned a spiritual city. He gave a vision to all the devotees that there'll be spiritual city here with all its functions. It'll be like the Vatican, which is a country in itself within a country. It'll be the embassy of the spiritual world. It'll be completely self-sufficient. In fact, Jananivas Prabhu says, Prabhupada said this Mayapur country will have its own currency called Caitanyas. And just by doing business transactions, people will be taking the name of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then devotees once said, when we have the big temple, we will demolish this Bhajan Kutir, Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, no. People should know how we began in just this small hut, so which is still there today. And Srila Prabhupada gave this grand vision of Temple of Vedic Planetarium, which is being manifested by the combined efforts of all the devotees all over the world. In Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada went through so many austerities. He in fact strategized that in the center of the altar will be Krishna Balaram deity. Radha Krishna deity will be on the side and Gaur Nitai would be on the other side. But Krishna Balaram in the center, especially because Srila Prabhupada wanted the Brajbasis to understand that Krishna Balaram is none other than Gaur Nitai. So he established Krishna Balaram in the center. He would say that Mayapur is my worship place and Vrindavan is my home. Bombay is my office. He gave us the glories of Jagannath Puri. Everyone knows about Rath Yatra, but Jagannath Puri, the glory of Jagannath Puri, he spread all over the world. So we go to the next one.
Paramamangala Shri Chaitanya Maha Prabhu Shikhata Achare Prachare Shodam Adere Ki Korito Niyojan Jodi Prabhupada na hoito Tobe ki hoito E Jivan Bodhito Kishe. The teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu constitute the greatest and most auspicious treasure. Who else would have engaged us in constantly practicing and preaching about it? So in this regard, I'm reminded of a very beautiful Leela that Srila Radhanath Swami Guru Maharaj talks about. He says, he gives us a very beautiful story about, about a man who was walking on the road. And, when he was walking on the road at that time, he first saw on the side of the road, there was a, thin stick, a dry stick that was lying on the road. He picked that up. He walked a little more further and he found a dry, hollow, pumpkin. When pumpkin becomes dry, it becomes hollow from the inside. So it was all dried up. So this pumpkin, he saw that pumpkin. This man picked up that pumpkin also. He walked a little bit further and he saw a wire lying down on the street. So he picked up that wire. And then with these three items, a stick, the dry pumpkin, and the wire, he made into a beautiful musical instrument it's called Iktara, and then playing the Iktara, then he just continued on his journey. So the moral of the story is that by themselves, neither the stick, nor the hollow pumpkin, nor the wire had any kind of importance. But when they were brought together, they were transformed into this beautiful musical instrument which helped in glorifying the names of Krishna. So that is Srila Prabhupada. That person, who picked up these three items and put them together and use them in the service of Krishna, that person is just like Srila Prabhupada. We have no qualification on our own to render any kind of service to Krishna or to even to the devotees. We don't have any qualification. But this is the mercy of Krishna. This is the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, that he is picking us up and utilizing different natures that we have. He is teaching us how to dovetail our propensities, our qualities in the service of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, his disciples would come, they would say, oh, we have some, experience in publishing. Srila Prabhupada would say, okay, fine, you take care of the publishing of my Bhaktivedanta books. And then someone would say, oh, I have some, experience in editing. Okay, you become the editor of all my books. Someone would come as an artist. Okay, you start painting Krishna. Srila Prabhupada would show, he would stand in the threefold bending form of Krishna, and he would show how the dhoti pleats would fall so that the artists could, Prabhupada would pose as Krishna so that the artists could paint, because they had never envisioned. Prabhupada gave these he utilized these devotees with their basic talents, used them in the service of Krishna. That is an acharya like Srila Prabhupada. So all of us, we don't have any qualifications. On our own, we are nothing. We are like that dry, hollow pumpkin. Got no use. But when our spiritual masters and Srila Prabhupada, when they pick us up and put us in the proper situation, by their mercy, we can somehow be used as worthy instruments to help in the preaching mission for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. So with this, we come to the last verse of this beautiful bhajan. Prema kalpataru nitai gaurera kripa kono lobhivare niravadhi jaya patakare doye tomara sharana kare niravadhi jaya patakare doye tomara sharana kare যদি প্রভুপাদ না হইতো তবে কি হইতো এ জীবন বলিত কিসে।
Shri Shri Gaur-Nitai, our desire trees of love of Godhead, desiring a drop of their mercy, Jayapataka's heart incessantly takes shelter of your divine grace. So Srila Prabhupada, he is the emissary of Shri Shri Gaur-Nitai. And one time in Allahabad, Srila Prabhupada, it was Nityananda Prabhu, Nityananda Trayodashi. Srila Prabhupada came out. There were so many devotees and guests who were waiting to hear. He was on the top of a pandal, and there were devotees downstairs and guests. And Srila Prabhupada said, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is very merciful, but Lord Nityananda is more merciful than Lord Chaitanya. And as soon as he said this, he stopped. He became stunned. And devotees who were sitting near him, felt sprinkled with his tears. It is said that tears of love, when they come, love of God, they come as spears. They were coming out. And Srila Prabhupada stopped, and then he looked at everyone. He said, Kirtan, and he went back. These were the only 2 words that he spoke. He was so much immersed in their love of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and so much he appreciated the mercy of Shri Shri Gaur-Nitai. one time during the Rath Yatra, San Francisco Rath Yatra, Srila Prabhupada said, did you all see? Even today, Gaur Nitai came. Did you see Gaur Nitai? They were dancing in the Rath Yatra. And devotees were looking at each other. I don't think so. But that's why, if you see even today in San Francisco Rath Yatra, there are life-size, even like 10-foot deities of Gaur Nitai there, who actually go dancing in the Rath Yatra in San Francisco. One time, Srila Prabhupada actually emphasized one devotee, Nanda Kumar Prabhu, who is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He mentioned that he would chant his 16 rounds every day. And one day he was very tired. He could chant only 14 rounds. And then he had heard that we can, if we are not able to complete all 16 rounds on one day, we can actually go to the next day and complete those rounds the next day. So he said, I'm tired. I'll sleep today. Tomorrow I'll chant 2 extra rounds. And when he woke up next day morning, and he was Srila Prabhupada's servant, came to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, so, did you finish your 16 rounds? And Nandakumar Prabhu said, Srila Prabhupada, yesterday I couldn't complete, but today I will complete those 2 rounds extra. So Srila Prabhupada said, yes, we must complete our 16 rounds. Because when a child is trying to walk, sometimes he falls. But if he holds the hand of his mother while walking, when he's falling, the mother immediately picks him up. Similarly, we are neophytes in spiritual life. We will, while walking this razor sharp path of spiritual life, we may fall and cut ourselves in so many things. But if we are chanting our 16 rounds regularly, then when we are falling down, Srila Krishna, he will lift us up just like a mother who lifts the boy when the child is about to fall. So we must finish our 16 rounds. We must take, Srila Prabhupada emphasized that. In fact, he said in many of his purports, of all the instructions of the spiritual master, chanting of the 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the most important. So this is something which we should always understand. Then, if we are doing our sadhana properly, if we are doing Vaishnav Seva properly, then Srila Prabhupada can use us as his instruments. Just like a surgeon, he uses his knife and scissors to operate on a patient and save the life of a patient. But if the operation is successful, who gets the credit? Does the knife get the credit? Does the scissor get the credit? Or is it the doctor who gets the credit? It is always the doctor who gets the credit of a successful operation. Similarly, when we are used as instruments, all glory is to Srila Prabhupada, to our Guru Maharaj, who then gives to his Guru Maharaj, and goes to Krishna through the Parampara system. At the same time, it is our duty to keep our knives and scissors razor sharp. If the knife and scissor are not sharp, they will not be used as instruments. They cannot be, even if they want to. Even if the doctor wants to use them, if they are the only ones, he still cannot use them because they are not sharp. Similarly, we should sharpen our consciousness by chanting of minimum 16 rounds every day and follow the regulative principles, serve the Vaishnavas. Then Srila Prabhupada will use us as his instruments in this way. So with this, we would like to pray to Srila Prabhupada, please give us the spiritual strength to be able to complete our vows, follow our vows, complete our rounds every day, serve the devotees with humility, tolerance, love, and respect, and preach as an instrument of your compassion.
So, in this regard, the chanting of 16 rounds, like Prabhu was mentioning, is something so important. Srila Prabhupada, in his books, in his lecture, Srila Prabhupada talks about, the importance of chanting 16 rounds. But His Grace Mukunda Datta Prabhu, a senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, was once telling us one personal instruction that Brahmananda Prabhu had received from Srila Prabhupada in order for us to be able to concentrate on our japa. So we thought it would be a very appropriate time on this auspicious day to share this chanting tip with everyone. So Mukunda Datta Prabhu said that, Prabhupada said that in order for us to focus better, concentrate on our japa, when we chant Hare Krishna, if we can make the bead dance, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And when we say Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, keep it idle. Don't move at that time. So Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Again, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this way, our chanting, our beads are also getting massaged. And, with Krishna we dance, with Ram we stay, steady like that. So this is a nice meditation. It helps in focusing on our japa. So this is the kind of tips that Srila Prabhupada has given, like we've been spoon-fed. And again, as we said, that if it was not for Srila Prabhupada, we wouldn't be able to be sitting here. Can we imagine that when we, the days that we came to this foreign country from our own homes, back home in India, we knew exactly where we were going. We knew who was going to come and welcome us at the airport, who was going to come to receive us, who will take them, where are we going to stay. Everything we knew. But imagine the condition of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, he knew that, okay, he's going to stay at the home of Gopal Agarwal. But will they come to take him? What is going to happen? Prabhupada is coming to this completely, unknown place at that age, at that time. And it's such a difficult thing Srila Prabhupada did. And we all read in the Lilamrita that Srila Prabhupada came with 40 rupees. Actually, in ISKCON 50 celebrations at Kolkata, Vrindavan De, who is the youngest son of Srila Prabhupada, he, it seems, made a statement which was repeated to us by Srila Radhanath Swami Guru Maharaj. He told us that Srila Prabhupada told, because Vrindavan De came to see off Srila Prabhupada at the Jaladuta, at the Hooghly dock, shipyard dock, and he was boarding the ship. And Vrindavan De came, and then Prabhupada asked Vrindavan De that, please, send me some Ayurvedic medicines which I will need. So send me those. And Vrindavan De didn't have any money. So then Prabhupada took out his 40 rupees from his own pocket and gave it to Vrindavan De. He said, use this money to buy my medicine and send it to me. So Srila Prabhupada actually came penniless to America, suffering so much difficulties on his journey. And with just this one desire, that he has come to fulfill the instructions of his spiritual master. So as a gratitude to Srila Prabhupada, what we owe to Srila Prabhupada, even giving our lives would not be enough for such a person who has given us this rarest of, gem of Krishna consciousness that Srila Prabhupada has given us. But the way that we can show our gratitude to Srila Prabhupada is that if we can just share what we have received, if we share it with others and offer them as Pushpanjali, offer the Pushpanjali of living souls to Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet, that would be a way of showing our gratitude to our very dear Srila Prabhupada. And it is said, our Guru Maharaj, Srila Jayapataka Maharaj says that, yes, the father has very beautiful, sweet relationship with the son or the daughter, but the grandfather has a sweeter and a much more loving and a very, very sweet relationship with the grandchildren. So we as second generation, we have that kind of loving and sweet relationship with Srila Prabhupada. So therefore, on this most auspicious day of the appearance of Srila Prabhupada, we beg to our spiritual grandfather that please may he use us as worthy instruments to be used by his spiritual sons, our Guru Vargas, so that we can assist them in furthering this mission of Srila Prabhupada and thereby please him. So with this, we end today's session. With this prayer to Srila Prabhupada, we end today's session. We see two questions that Gita Varadarajan Mataji is first asking, that which is the verse talking about the commander-in-chief. So this is not from Caitanya Charitamrita.
This is from Sri Chaitanya Mangal in the Sutra Khanda by Lochandas Thakur, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaks this verse in Sri Chaitanya Mangal Sutra Khanda by Lochandas Thakur. The other question is by Gita Varadarajan Mataji, if damaged, can we install the deities? Well, if you are referring to Radha Landanishwara, Sri Radha Landanishwara, Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee. And the most important part of the installation of the deities is the Pran Pratishtha ceremony, where, of course, there are rituals, but also a pure devotee invites the Lord as the deity. And when Srila Prabhupada, the pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada is inviting, all of these rituals and things don't really matter so much. But in general, yes, if the deity is damaged before installation, then yes, we should avoid installing. Prabhupada had done that one time when he was in a situation where he could, because at that time in ISKCON and Radha Landanishwara time, ISKCON didn't have so much resources to get deities and all of that. So Radha Landanishwara came, Srila Prabhupada took this as a sign from Krishna. But in other times, if the deities were damaged before installation, he would request that the deities be changed. But once they have been installed and you're praying to them and serving them, and then if they get damaged, then we should do some samskara, and we can continue the worship. In fact, there was one pastime where one of the great in the line of Srila Prabhupada, in Day family only, there was one deity who was worshipped for several generations, and that deity's hand broke at that time. And at the same time, the son's hand also got fractured. And the family was thinking maybe we should change the deity like that. And Krishna came in the dream. And he said, your son also has broken his hand. Will you change your son? Will you let your son go away just because he broke his hand? No, you'll fix it. So just fix and continue worship. So like that.
Yes, and also damaged in the sense that if they are broken, if there any kind of limb is broken of the deity, then yes, they need to be changed. But Radha Landanishwara, when Prabhupada inspected the deities, it is just that, it was just very minor, something very minor. So Srila Prabhupada didn't, find the necessity to kind of change them out. So hope that answers your question. We again thank all of you for your beautiful comments and for your, online association.
Ananda Bavari Mataji, Supriya Mataji, Gita Varadarajan Mataji, Anju Agarwal Mataji, Lalita Mataji, Soumya Mataji, Menaka Mataji, Baba Ma, Reena Kamath, thank you so much for joining today. And on Facebook, Ranjanai Gopika Mataji, Mausami Kundu, Narsimha Gaura Hari Prabhu, Maitreyi Mataji, Shanti Mataji, Radha Padavi Mataji, Dayan Itwaru, welcome, and Parmeshwari Radha Mataji. Thank you very much.
So we look forward to all of your association again tomorrow. So thank you all so very much for your association. And we look forward to seeing you again. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Vartaman Guru Vrind ki jai.
Hare
Jai
Krishna.
Nitai Gaur Sitanath Premanande. Hari
Hare
Hari
Bol.
Bo.